So we have a panel of extremely capable women here in front of you now, and they're very willing to be open about their experiences of success and failure within politics, because all of these women have struggled for the role that they are playing within the political system. Whenever I needed to go out to a nighttime meeting or to afternoon meetings, whatever, my family were there to help out, to maybe collect the children from school or whatever. So from that point of view, the family support enabled me to do what I was doing as a potential candidate, and then when I was elected as councillor. The cash, well, if you're part of the party system, the party will certainly pay a certain amount, but you do need some money of your own. And that can be done by fundraisers now. This time, because I'm a general election candidate, the requirement for cash is actually multiple of what I thought it was going to be. But I've had fundraising, I'm having one again tonight, and so that's going to be very helpful, and indeed the party will also help fund it too. Confidence. My having been in the home for 8 years certainly did knock my confidence to an extent, but I had started to overcome that because I went back to do a PLC course, and that was really a great boost for my confidence. It happened in the few months before the local election. And from that perspective it was very good. I also remained active in my voluntary work in my community, and because I did that, and because I was active in drama and things like that, I suppose, and my age as well, having been, you know, in my 30s, I did have that sort of self-awareness, and things didn't faze me to the same extent as maybe I would have been when I was that little bit younger. The culture of men in politics, we see, I suppose, Rachel and I have something in common, as do so many other female politicians, and it is that it was part of the family. We grew up with it. I mean, I remember canvassing on my bicycle for my daddy when I was 13 with my little box of canvas cards in the back. He was a butcher in the local town, and he was too busy to canvass because he was canvassing behind the block all the time. But, you know, he needed to get these distributed. You know, I can remember people calling to the door and canvassing in general elections, and, you know, having to show senators here and there for a Senate election. So politics was in our family. We saw politics as something that was part of what we lived. It wasn't this mysterious thing that wasn't something that it wasn't for me. And that's something I think is really important to think about, because politics is about us all. It's about people, it's about decisions that affect each and every one of us, male or female, young and old, whatever your abilities.
Because I really believe that women in politics need the support of you, the women out there, because we start from a marginalised and disadvantaged position right from the beginning. And just maybe to give you a little bit of a background with regard to myself, I'm just over 40, I like to say. So I think that's a good blend of this big word that's been bandied about at the moment about youth and youth and youth, and youth is important, but you also need to have experience, because you are in shark-infested waters once you go into politics. And it has been mentioned here this morning about the dominance of men in politics, and traditionally that is, certainly within my own party, within Fianna Fáil, it's hugely dominated by men. And I think overall in the Dáil, I'm not a person for statistics, but I believe it was 20 to 22 women, 23 women in Dáil Éireann representing women. I'd like to say at the outset as well, I don't necessarily believe that women in politics should be there just to represent women's issues. I think that that's important to say. Women can represent everybody's issues, and the issues of women don't necessarily need to be represented just by women. And I think that's important, because, you know, we live in a world today that the tokenism of women shouldn't necessarily be the reason why we have a woman candidate. And regrettably, within my own party, the moves that have been made to try and introduce women over the last number of years have really, they've tried to do it at the grassroots, but it hasn't worked. And it's about, for example, the common structure, which would be the local structure within your community, which generally meets every couple of months to discuss what local issues are happening in the area. And Fianna Fáil tried to introduce that each common, and the common would be the local organisation, that common has a vote at a convention to select a candidate. I hope people are understanding what I'm saying. Each common, for example, would have 3 votes at a convention. and a local area may have 65 votes towards a convention candidate. In my own area in Boyle, we had 66 delegates who came to vote on a candidate in the Boyle electoral area. Strokestown, which would be another electoral area, would also come with their 60-odd delegates. So the structure within parties is quite complicated, and Fianna Fáil a number of years ago tried to introduce that each common would have one woman, and it hasn't worked for all the reasons that you've said here today, because women in the home, at work, are too busy. And by the time you have a day's work done, or you've spent your time either in a voluntary organisation or bringing up your children, you simply don't have time to go to a meeting at 9 or half 9 at night to attend as the woman or the women who are interested in local issues.
Now, the reason I said I was with Labour Women Executive, I'm actually the area representative for Clare, and I've been through selection conventions and everything else. I'm the only first chairwoman of any political party in Clare they've ever had, which has been very difficult. I have some lovely mentors, some older men that tell me I have to stand like this a bit more and I have to explain it's not that comfortable. I don't have a penis, there's no point in me standing that way. They often say that I speak too quietly, and if I could be less of a girl I would go farther, and it was then I decided to do more and more. Now, one of the things, and why I'm here today, I was meant to be at a very important meeting and I'm in an awful lot of trouble, so it's an honour and a privilege to be here. Because, not necessarily, we'll forget it's the Labour Women Executive. I'm on the executive, which is one of the policy making executive out of Dublin. And that, to me, I've been told is going to destroy my legal, or my political career. It's an Achilles heel. And as I remember taking the position, which I was very proud when they asked me to be on the executive, I was told, you might as well have a shovel and buried yourself. I disagree, because one of the proudest things since I came back to this country is the brainchild of the National Women's Council of Ireland. The parity bill that was brought forward in 2009. And for someone in my 20s, I can't believe I'm admitting that I was so anti it. You know, and I know most of you may know the figures, just in case some of you don't. I think we're 85th in the world at the moment. We are dropping because every other country are taking corrective measurements. You know, we have, I'd be able to, Susan, what is it now, 14% representation? 13.8. You know, it's wrong. It is just so wrong. And Eamon Gilmore, funny enough, I remember being at a conference, he said, he went very near Ballinsloe, he went to boarding school, and one of his first things he said he remembers when he went there was it was the most natural place he'd ever been in the world, because it was all men. There was only one female nurse. And he said the only other place like that in the world since is Dáil Éireann on Kildare Street. Labour women, they pushed. It's not as if all the men in the Labour Party are that open-minded and they went, God, that's a great idea. Yes! I mean, we fight tooth and nail and do damage to our own by putting these forward. Now, this bill, you know, it is on our manifesto and it has to go forward. You know, I've had the argument, like you've had as well, you know, you'll get there on your own. You won't. You won't get there on your own. And the thing about it, we're not saying that it will stay there forever. And basically, just in case, does everyone know or is familiar with it, the bill went forward. It was a brainchild of the National Women's Council of Ireland that they would lose funding, some of their electorate funding. You know, first of all, a 7-year, they would shoot for over that by the time 33%, the next 7 year, and eventually up to 40%. At that time, they would introduce a sunset clause, which pulls it out altogether, and by then nature has taken its course and you have an equal representation. I've lived in countries where it's worked. I've worked in government in Canada. I've worked in Sweden. It's there now. They don't need quotas anymore because they're there. It is not, nature has taken its course. Some of the challenges as well. People say, how come you did very well? You've children. I have an unemployed husband who's absolutely brilliant with kids. You know, he's the primary caregiver at home. That's why I'm off here today and there and turn up at meetings. So if anything was to come out of today, is please don't be intimidated by the idea of quotas. The other thing which does get mentioned as well, a lot of the women that I found that did very well, we tend to be quite an egotistical bunch in a certain degree because we got there and we did have to work harder than the men. So we just don't want any woman going in. Why?
I think women in politics is very good. I think that we do more women in politics, but I do think that they need to change the structure that's with the politicians at the moment so that more women can go forward into politics. But the women that we see out there, I was very inspired because they were very open and honest, and no one can judge someone on the inside because it is very hard being a woman in politics, especially when it's male dominated.
I feel women in politics is an important benefit to the country. I feel that it would be fantastic to see perhaps a nurse going into politics, somebody from the front line to turn around the health system who has seen for herself firsthand people on trolleys and would have an empathy and compassion for what patients waiting for and perhaps radically change our health system for the better.
Today's session was very informative, and it was great to see women from different constituencies involved in politics and being very passionate about politics itself and the issues around women.
I think it was great to hear from such a diverse range of women. I think it was particularly encouraging to see the atmosphere of kind of the supportive atmosphere essentially that women from different parties were still willing to get on board with this issue and leave partisanship behind, which was very nice. But most of all, I think that we've realised now, which we have really already, that legislation is what we need, is the only thing that's going to fix this, and we need it now.
I think I would go back now and say to all the women that I know to put down their names, particularly if they're interested in running in subsequent elections. So it's been a very, very interesting meeting.
Particularly looking at barriers for women getting into politics. I think it has certainly removed a lot of myth that I thought was there. So I think really women need to get involved in parties locally and get involved in women's organisations.
I found this morning very informative. I felt that the audience were really interested in the whole subject of women as decision makers and women in politics, and I was delighted for the invitation to come here today.
Today it's a privilege to be here today, and I hope that this is rolled out, the incentive that's brought here by the women here in Longford. There has to be a balance. I will fight tooth and nail for parity democracy. Go with, even if it's not my party, any party, all parties must work together for this, because we will never have a democracy unless 50% of the population are represented, which is by women.
I thought the day was absolutely fantastic. I think that it was a real change to have a room full of women who were being really honest with each other about what it's like to try to get into politics. I thought the politicians that we had here today were really opened themselves up to the audience in a very, very useful way for anybody in the room who was thinking of getting involved in politics. I thought that we got very clear insight into the barriers that women face in trying to go into politics, and I thought we got a lot of encouragement as well. I was particularly taken with the female politician who put forward the notion that women should not be held back by notions about quotas being tokenism or whatever, because as she put it, men don't give a hoot, they just want to get into power, you know. So, I mean, men have been being favoured and discriminated for so long. It really is time that women gave women a chance.